What I want to do is get on with the work of government. I stand behind the Prime Minister and the work we're doing to protect Canadians and address their needs. Thank you.
So do you want this to stop, basically? Mr. Becker.
Ben, écoutez, moi, je peux vous dire que une des choses qu'on doit faire, c'est vraiment mettre l'emphase sur toute la préparation de la prochaine campagne. Moi, je l'ai dit. Oui, mais non, mais ce que je voulais vous dire, c'est une fois que le premier ministre a pris sa décision de dire qu'il sera le chef du Parti libéral du Canada à la prochaine élection, maintenant, notre rôle, nous, c'est de gagner la confiance des Canadiens, de gagner la prochaine élection. Et comme je le disais souvent, le vote de confiance qui compte le plus, c'est celui des Canadiens et des Canadiennes. Alors, c'est sur ça qu'on va travailler aujourd'hui, travailler ensemble là-dessus. Je pense que la présentation, s'il y en a une, mais ce que je peux vous dire, c'est qu'on est préparé. Moi, comme coprésident de la campagne au Québec, on travaille ardemment à présenter un plan qui va rassembler, qui va plaire d'abord aux Canadiens et Canadiennes, mais aussi qui va démontrer aux collègues comment on avance, parce qu'il y a des candidats, des candidates qui se présentent, le financement avance, c'est-à-dire l'aspect préparation est là, mais avant tout, nous, ce qu'il faut faire, c'est de continuer de travailler pour les Canadiens et Canadiennes, parce qu'honnêtement, les gens à la maison qui nous regardent ont peu d'intérêt pour ce qui se passe à Ottawa. Croyez-moi, je sais qu'on est tous à Ottawa, on pense que les gens s'intéressent beaucoup à ce qui se passe, là, mais les gens s'intéressent à leurs enjeux, l'habitation, la sécurité. On parlait, par exemple, de la question des cellulaires dans les prisons sur lesquelles on s'attaque. Les gens veulent qu'on travaille sur des enjeux concrets, puis c'est ce que je fais à toi. Merci.
Des élections de la semaine prochaine aux États-Unis. Comment est-ce que vous vous préparez concrètement à l'arrivée de Donald Trump en ce moment, à une semaine de
ben, comme vous savez, c'est pas, on se prépare à la prochaine élection américaine depuis très longtemps. Vous savez, c'est ce que le premier ministre avait fait avec l'équipe Canada. On a un peu d'expérience, comme je vous dirais, c'est vraiment l'équipe qui est en place, l'expérience, l'expertise. Nous, on est prêts, comme je disais, avec soit l'une ou l'autre des administrations. Vous savez, la plupart de nous ont servi aussi durant l'administration de l'ancien président Trump, autant qu'avec une administration démocrate. Alors, dans un cas comme dans l'autre, je vous dirais qu'on sera là pour défendre les intérêts des Canadiens, de l'industrie. Moi, j'ai toujours dit, quand je vais à Washington, les trois enjeux qui comptent pour nos voisins américains, c'est la sécurité dans le nord de l'Arctique, la résilience des chaînes d'approvisionnement, parce qu'après la COVID, c'est très important qu'on parle de minéraux critiques, qu'on parle de semi-conducteurs, qu'on parle d'énergie. Et la troisième chose, c'est vraiment un plan de croissance pour l'Amérique du Nord. Et ça, je veux dire, ça résonne parce que les démocrates nous disent « vous êtes alignés dans les politiques », mais les républicains disent « vous parlez business ». Et ça, c'est un message qui passe évidemment là-bas.
Le secteur de l'aluminium et de l'acier, est-ce que vous avez des craintes particulières?
Bien, je vous dirais, une des choses qu'on a réussi à faire présentement, qui est différent de la dernière administration républicaine, c'est que nos chaînes sont plus alignées, c'est-à-dire que on n'est plus dépendants l'un de l'autre. Moi, je me rappelle avec un des gouverneurs d'un État du Sud des États-Unis, j'avais dit, oubliez pas que l'aluminium que vous utilisez dans votre usine de BMW vient de l'aluminium de chez nous du Saguenay. Donc, on est dépendants l'un de l'autre pour la résilience. Alors, c'est ce qu'on a fait dans le domaine de l'aluminium, c'est aussi ce qu'on fait dans l'acier, parce qu'avec, vous savez, la demande qu'on voit en matière d'acier dans les véhicules automobiles, mais aussi dans le domaine de la défense, il y a un lien qui est plus fort que jamais. Alors, moi, ce que je dis à nos voisins américains, c'est que on l'a toujours dit, une décision d'un côté de la frontière va avoir un impact des deux côtés, mais aujourd'hui, il y a une interdépendance qui est plus grande qui était la dernière fois qu'il y avait une administration républicaine.
Someone in your party would like to see you coronated as interim leader in the case that Trudeau does step down. What are your thoughts on, some people floating your name around?
Listen, the Prime Minister has made his decision. He's going to be the leader of the Liberal Party of Canada. He's going to lead the next election. I think for us now, we need to make sure that we win the trust of Canadians and we win the next election. The only vote of confidence that really matters is the one of Canadians.
But how do you do that when your own party doesn't even want him as leader? How do you convince Canadians he's the right choice, your government's the right choice, when people in your caucus don't even want him here anymore?
I'm not sure I would subscribe to what you said, because we had this discussion last week. And I think it was important, like in a family, to make sure that all the voices were heard. It was respectful. It was thoughtful. It came from a good place. I said it many times. But now the question was, that the Prime Minister would remain as the leader of the party, and he said, yes, I do. So once you've established that, then the best way for us to win the trust of Canadians and to win the next election is to work together, because like I said, the vote that really mattered, the vote of confidence of all, is the one of Canadians. So my view is to make sure that we now work together, earn the trust of Canadians, win the next election, and continue to deliver for Canadians.
There are still MPs saying that he's the wrong. There's still Liberal MPs saying he's the wrong man for the job. How do you regain their trust if you're going to even try to regain the trust of Canadians to form another government?
Well, at some stage, like I said, this is a discussion we had last week. There might be discussion this week, but the issue last week was for him to confirm that he's going to run as the next Liberal leader for the next election, and he said so. Very clearly and very definitively. So once this is done, like I said, the best way for us to win is to work together, earn the trust of Canadians, win the next election, and really that's going to be, I think, the spirit today. You know, people were asking for him to make a decision. That decision is very clear, it's definitive. So now we have to work together to win the next election.
Est-ce qu'on peut revenir une seconde sur les États-Unis? Est-ce que vous n'avez pas l'impression que tout le travail dont vous parlez, le travail que vous avez fait en amont, au final, ça ne servira à rien parce que Trump a l'air plus que jamais sans foi ni loi? Donc, ça va avoir...
Je vous dirais, moi je parle, écoutez, on a des contacts avec beaucoup de ses conseillers et je vous dirais que le message résonne. C'est-à-dire qu'on n'est pas dans la même forme d'administration Trump qu'on a vu la dernière fois. Le monde a changé. La résilience des chaînes d'approvisionnement est clé. La question de la sécurité est importante. Ce qu'on a appelé souvent la forteresse nord-américaine au niveau économique est à l'avant-plan. Moi, je peux vous dire, j'ai parlé même hier à des gens qui sont dans son entourage, direct ou indirect, et je peux vous dire que la réalité pour eux a changé. C'est-à-dire que moi, je l'ai souvent dit, le Canada, c'est pas seulement un voisin fiable, mais maintenant, on est devenu un voisin stratégique. Minéraux critiques, par exemple, pour les véhicules électriques, pour les semi-conducteurs, la question de l'énergie, la question, vous savez, comme j'ai souvent dit à Bromont, 80% des semi-conducteurs produits aux États-Unis finissent ici chez nous pour la dernière partie de la fabrication. Donc, le titane qu'on fait maintenant à Sorel, le plus grand producteur de titane pour le milieu de la défense américaine, c'est maintenant le Québec, le Canada. Donc, ces enjeux-là résonnent parce que, évidemment, dans un monde comme on le vit aujourd'hui, où il y a de la turbulence, où il y a des changements technologiques, bien, le Canada devient le partenaire stratégique de choix. Puis ça, je pense que ça fait une différence dans nos discussions.
Est-ce que vous pensez que c'est un fasciste, M. Trump?
Écoutez, nous, on va suivre, comme je vous dis, l'élection américaine qui s'en vient parce qu'on est près on a travaillé fort pour se préparer. Puis moi, mon rôle, vous savez, c'est de défendre les intérêts du Canada. Moi, c'est mon rôle, c'est celui-là, de défendre les Canadiens, défendre l'industrie canadienne, défendre les intérêts canadiens. Puis les Américains, évidemment, feront leur choix. Merci.
Have you encouraged the Prime Minister to stay on?
What's that?
You've characterized what's happening.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you've heard all I had to say.
Do you still think the call for secret ballot is garbage?
Well, first, Mackenzie, the words I used were to characterize what's going on, and not in any individuals. I think you guys know that. As I said, coming out of these meetings, I profoundly respect my colleagues. Actually, really close friends with them, respect what they said to the Prime Minister. But I think it's utter silliness to be focusing on anything else than the threat that Pierre Poilievre presents to this country. And you know, like I said, we're sleepwalking and paving the way for a really toxic guy to take over the political atmosphere in Canada, and this is contributing to it.
But
so you asked me about the secret ballot.
Yeah, go ahead.
We stand up in the House of Commons in public. We show our faces. We put our faces on posters every 4 years. Some of us have our writing offices ransacked. We do absolutely everything in public, and the caucus is a space for things to be done in private, but for people to actually show their faces and say exactly what they mean and want the Prime Minister to do, and that's what they're doing. So I don't see the need for a secret ballot.
Votre collègue, M. Yvan Baker, dit que lui qui demande un vote secret, il dit que c'est pas au ministre là, de décider si c'est une bonne idée ou pas. Parce que les ministres disent que c'est pas une bonne idée. Il dit que c'est au premier ministre de répondre et de décider si s'il veut se soumettre à...
Je pense que c'est à l'entièreté du... Je voulais pas t'interrompre, excuse.
Non, mais qu'est-ce que vous avez répondu?
C'est à l'entièreté du caucus, je pense, de décider. On a toujours décidé de se lever et de se montrer de façon très publique. Comme j'ai dit à Mackenzie en anglais, on met notre face sur un poteau. On a des bureaux de comté, on est très public. On se présente dans la Chambre des communes, on se lève publiquement. Pourquoi on se ferait ça en secret? De quoi est-ce qu'ils ont peur? Oui, c'est pas un ministre. C'est pas... Vous l'aimeriez bien, là, je sais très bien. Mais je suis d'accord avec Evan, je respecte son opinion. Mais je pense pas que c'est approprié, puis on va décider à l'intérieur.
So how will you put a lid on this dissent then?
Do you have any suggestions? What's your suggestion?
I don't know. They're going to keep agitating. People will keep agitating.
It needs to end. It really needs to end, but I think people need to get things off their chest. And any deadlines or ultimatums that they've drawn, they need to decide.
How unfortunate is this timing? You could be heading into an election sooner rather than later, and with a divided party.
I think we're all unified in beating Pierre Poilievre.
Yeah,
I mean, some people may not
You're not unified
agree
over
on
the leader, and that's big.
Well, they may not agree on the method. I think the vast majority of caucus, the entirety of cabinet, is behind the Prime Minister. I think that counts. We've always had people in the party that may not like what the Prime Minister is doing. They may not like him. They may not like his policies. But we've always pulled together in a largely respectful fashion.
You haven't
and
always
gotten
been
things
speaking
done.
out like this.
Yeah, fine. And that's, the reflection of people's own desire to speak up publicly if they don't feel heard internally. I think that, to some extent, is on us.
Why do you think you've got a fifth of your caucus that is now...
I just wanted to finish my sentence.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I just think it's on us to sort out in private. The caucus atmosphere, I know it's not ideal for you guys because you're in there getting the latest and greatest, but it is something I think we need to sort out. And I do think we owe it to be respectful to our colleagues that have particular views. But on certain policy issues, there are things that we will not bend on, and we will go to the polls on. If they don't like it, they will have to make a decision according to their own conscience. Sorry.
You've got a fifth of your caucus that seems upset. The rest says they're not upset, but the fifth is not going away. So are you at sort of like an impasse now where there are constantly going to be people in the media complaining, but also everybody else is saying that he's staying on? Like, how do you move on?
So I can't predict the future. I think we largely came out of last caucus unified in the common goal of facing Pierre Poilievre in the next election and beating him. The method, not necessarily entirely agreed on, but I think largely this is something we need to sort out in private and make sure that we are all unified coming out of our caucus meetings. This can't remain a trickle. It needs to end. We have to end it in the right way. It has to be done in a respectful fashion.
How do you think the Prime
and
Minister...
without leaking, from bathroom stalls or wherever people are leaking.
But how do you think the Prime Minister does that? Because the question doesn't seem to be even about policy. It seems to be about him. If he's the person that Canadians would be willing to vote for.
Largely Cabinet and caucus has been quite clear that they want the Prime Minister in place. And for anyone who doesn't, they have a decision to make according to their own conscience without forcing the rest of the caucus to follow. A small group of people don't decide the future of the country or the future of the Liberal Party.
Should those people minister should they get out of the way?
And they have their own choices to make, but I'm confident that we can sort this out. What's he saying? What's he saying these days?
He's saying that your party's morally obligated to keep Justin Trudeau. Do you actually agree with him on something?
What does Pierre Poilievre know about morality? Come on. Pierre Poilievre's morality?
No, do you agree?
How long have you been following? 20 years?
To keep Justin Trudeau.
I think the entirety of cabinet and entirety of caucus, for the most part, have said that the Prime Minister is Justin Trudeau, will remain Justin Trudeau, and will face Pierre Poilievre in the next election, despite what Pierre Poilievre thinks about morality, which is the first time I've ever heard him refer to the issue.
Est-ce qu'il y a des députés libéraux s'ils refusent la décision de M. Trudeau de rester comme chef? Est-ce qu'ils doivent quitter le caucus?
C'est leur choix de le faire, mais je pense qu'on peut rallier puis s'assurer qu'on est un caucus uni.
Merci.
Alberta's going to war against the carbon tax again. What do you think of that?
I know what I think about that. 65% of the residents of Edmonton Centre want us to fight climate change each and every day. And, when I was doing doors during the pandemic, while COVID was raging, the number one issue on the doors was climate change. And so we have to have a price on pollution. And the province wants to keep taking us to court. They can do what they think they need to do. But I can tell you Albertans want to save the planet. And the greenest barrel of oil is the barrel of oil that the rest of the world is going to want the most.
How difficult will it be to do those doors when your party is so divided?
The party's not divided, Julie. The
It's
party
united?
the party's united. You heard us last week. You're going to see us coming out of this caucus united again.
Have you told the people that are speaking out against the leader that you're united? Did
Well,
they get
we
it?
have these conversations all the time, and it's an important time for the party, it's an important time for the caucus, but more importantly, it's an important time for Canadians. And we're going to keep delivering every day.
But there's more of your MPs who are calling publicly for a secret ballot vote, even for the fact that they say they'll bring finality to this. So why not
I have
a
said
secret
everything I
ballot?
have to say about that yesterday.
What do you want to see today in terms of plans for the campaign? What would reassure you going into the
Well, I'm very much looking forward to the presentation that we're going to see on the campaign, and I have every confidence that we will come back and win the next election. Remember when I lost, and
Yes.
I was downstairs, and I was all bruised, and I left the Parliament, and you said to me, you will be back. And I said
I said
I
that?
just lost. What are you talking about? And you said, it's in your blood. I know we'll see you back here, so we'll be back again. Thanks.
Once it's in your blood, right?
Parce qu'il faut avoir des votes secrets. Le premier ministre a pris sa décision. Et puis.
Et ceux qui ne sont pas d'accord, ils doivent partir. Ceux qui remettent en question son leadership dans votre parti, qu'est-ce qu'ils doivent faire?
Il y a peut-être quelques exceptions qui ne se rallient pas à la décision. Effectivement, ils ont une décision à prendre. Mais il n'y aura pas de vote secret. On a un caucus aujourd'hui, on continue. La semaine passée, on a eu tout le temps d'exprimer nos sentiments, nos suggestions. Oui, là, la décision a été prise, on continue, on travaille.
Si on exprime les sentiments, mais qu'on n'a aucun levier, parce que c'est ça le
Non,
problème.
non, non, il y a eu en masse de leviers.
Qu'est-ce que c'est le
La
levier,
décision
déjà?
est prise.
Oui, mais
et
si vous êtes
on se
rebelle, vous n'avez
rallie.
aucun levier.
Oui, on a toujours un choix dans la vie.
J'ai fait la campagne en 2015 avec le chef, en 2019, en 2021, puis j'ai bien l'intention de refaire la prochaine campagne avec Justin Trudeau.
Est-ce qu'un vote secret, ça réglerait des choses, ça calmerait la grogne?
Pas d'accord pour un vote secret. Pourquoi? Parce qu'on a été élus par des gens, puis je pense que quand on est fier de nos opinions, on ne doit pas se cacher.
Ça ne permettrait pas de tourner la page?
Pas du tout.
Do you think there should be a secret ballot in caucus today? There's some people asking for it publicly.
Not at all.
Why not?
Because we should be focusing on defeating Poilievre, not wasting time on secret ballots and trying to undermine the Prime Minister.
But what do you do about those who are agitating for this and who seem to have a real problem with the Prime Minister's leadership? What do you do? It seems to be a growing number.
I don't know about it being a growing number. I think it's a decreasing number. Today we're going to hear about plans for our campaign and how we're going to defeat the Conservatives. I think it'll be an exciting day.
And how do you defeat them with a leader who's so unpopular?
You know what? I've been through 5 leaders. This is my 5th leader. Most of the time they're unpopular, but we still manage to win.
Est-ce que vous êtes d'accord avec l'idée d'un vote secret? Ça permettrait peut-être de tourner la page sur l'épisode un vote secret au caucus sur le leadership de M. Trudeau.
Oui, qu'est-ce que vous voulez dire par ça?
Est-ce qu'il y a certains de vos collègues députés libéraux qui veulent qu'il y ait un vote secret sur le leadership de M. Trudeau en caucus? Est-ce que vous pensez que c'est une bonne
Non, je suis contre cette idée. Entre familles, il faut parler ouvertement. Et moi, je suis honnête, je parle directement avec le chef. Écoute, entre familles, il ne faut pas toujours que le frère, le sœur, le père, le maman soient d'accord. On peut discuter ouvertement. Puis après, on prend la décision pour l'intérêt de la famille. Non, je ne pense pas. Comme je viens de venir, ce sont des collègues. C'est comme une discussion entre familles. Et si on est désaccord, ça ne veut pas dire qu'on va se séparer. Ça veut dire qu'on travaille, on discute honnêtement pour l'intérêt de la famille libérale, pour l'intérêt de notre caucus. Merci et bonne journée.
Deliberations in the caucus, and we'll determine from there. I feel it's important for us to have an open discussion, and the Prime Minister will make his decision appropriately. Thank you, guys. Well, I respect his decision, regardless. Take care.
Do you want to see a secret vote today?
I think these are the conversations we need to have in the caucus.
And what do you want to hear today from Andrew Bevin?
What's the plan to win the next election?
How are you feeling about the plan now, or lack of plan?
I am working hard in my riding. I've been door knocking over the last weekend, having conversations with my constituents. I think that's the best thing to do.
Because I respect that confidentiality. But what I think is that I've been very clear. I think a number of other colleagues.
Right, and this is why I ask, because everyone's saying we would love a secret ballot, but there doesn't seem to be any plan for someone to stand up or to say we would like a secret ballot vote, sir, ma'am. Can we please do this?
Well, I beg to differ. I mean,
so there has been a request.
But I beg to differ on what you just said. I mean, you and your colleagues have reported on many MPs, not just myself, many MPs who've spoken on the record believing that a secret ballot is the best way to move forward. So I think the position of a number of colleagues has been very, very clear on this. I think that now the ball's in the Prime Minister's court. I think the Prime Minister.
Or what happens?
I think the Prime Minister. I think now it's up to the Prime Minister to decide. I think that would be the best way to move forward. And I think the question should be asked to the Prime Minister if he supports a secret ballot, and if not, why not?
But what happens if you don't get one, though?
Les ministres disent on n'a pas besoin de ça, et en plus, la constitution du parti ne le permet pas, il n'y a pas de mécanisme pour ça. Est-ce que c'est une réponse satisfaisante selon vous?
Pour moi, on doit entendre le Premier ministre sur ce sujet-là. C'est pas la décision des ministres, c'est pas ma décision. Je pense que c'est le Premier ministre qui doit décider qu'on veut avancer de cette manière, et on devrait l'entendre sur ce sujet.
How many are you that feel this way? How many are you that feel this way?
Oh, I can't speak for my colleagues. I mean,
But
you've
roughly.
I don't. It wouldn't be fair to characterize that because I.
What do you think happens if you don't get a secret ballot? You said the ball's in the Prime Minister's court. What if his answer is now?
Look, I'm not going to speculate on next steps. I think right now, I'm speaking for myself. I believe that the for the sake of the party, for the country, is a secret ballot that unifies the party so that we can be united and put this behind us. And I think the next step is to ask the Prime Minister the very questions that you're asking, whether he believes in that secret ballot and it's not.
How will you feel if this meeting is just about the campaign and moving forward and not his leadership?
Look, I mean, we have a lot of meetings and a lot of discussions on a lot of topics, not just in these meetings, but in others. So I think it's important to not put too much emphasis on one particular meeting and what is in one particular meeting, because there are many meetings.
But does it become the elephant in the room that still stays in caucus?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't been in that caucus room yet, so I can't really comment. But I can't really comment on what happens in caucus. But I won't characterize what happened in caucus just for caucus confidentiality.
No, I know. But if it's not addressed, then what?
Look, I think we'll have to see. I'm not going to speculate on next steps. I think at the end of the day, the question is for the Prime Minister to answer. We've made a proposal. A number of colleagues have made a proposal. I think we haven't heard back from the Prime Minister.
Are you working on your own, or do you talk on the phone with the others? Is this a group effort, or is it each person for themselves?
Well, I would say that in any endeavor here on Parliament Hill, whether it's this or healthcare or dental care or any other issue that we're affordability that we're passionate about, we work on. We talk to colleagues. Sometimes we collaborate with colleagues. But what I've said, I'm speaking on my own behalf. I have to let you go. I have to go to caucus. Thank you very much.
Vous songez à quitter le caucus libéral si vous n'obtenez pas ce que vous demandez?
Je ne vais pas commencer à parler des autres étapes. En ce moment, ma demande, c'est qu'on a un bulletin secret, pour les raisons que je t'ai expliquées. C'est ça la prochaine étape. Et maintenant, je pense que c'était la question de demander au Premier ministre. Il doit penser, réfléchir sur ce sujet-là et répondre à cette demande. Merci beaucoup.
Pensez-vous que ça va aller de l'avant ou pas?
On va voir. La question est c'est pour le Premier ministre à répondre à cette demande. Merci beaucoup.
Because there's a process in our party. Members of the Liberal Party choose the leader of the party. That is the respect that we offer our members. It is members of the party get to decide that, not some small member of Congress. That's an important principle. I think it's an important principle we all need to adhere to.
And would it be a way to, I don't know, turn the page? Because some MPs, Liberals MPs, are asking for that secret ballot. So shouldn't there be that vote just to turn the page?
Just because some people ask for something, it doesn't mean that that's what you need to do. Pierre Poilievre is talking about asking for an election. It doesn't mean that everyone has to capitulate. We have a job to do. Our job is to work hard for our constituents and for Canadians. Every moment, and I said this yesterday, every moment spent on palace intrigue is a moment we are not working hard for constituents. And my example and my commitment to my constituents is to keep working hard for them. I am part of a united Liberal team who are all unified and committed to making sure we win the next election, to make sure that Mr. Poilievre's agenda on Canadians is not something that ever sees the light of day. That's what we're going to do. That's for them to decide. What is important for us as a team, and I know all those people are committed to making sure Mr. Poilievre does not win. They're all committed to making sure there is a strong Liberal government, and that the things that are working hard, that we are doing to work hard for Canadians continue to keep happening.
Un vote secret sur le leadership de M. Trudeau, un vote confidentiel sur le leadership de M. Trudeau. Est-ce que vous êtes en faveur?
J'ai toujours dit j'ai appuyé l'acte réforme.
OK. Pensez quoi de cette idée de vote secret? Est-ce que ça permettrait de passer à autre chose?
Moi, mon éthique personnelle me dit que c'est une décision qui revient à Justin Trudeau. À partir du moment où il a pris sa décision, Il faut s'unir et se concentrer sur ce qui compte. Pour moi, ce qui compte, c'est bien plus les politiques du gouvernement que la politique au Parti libéral. Par rapport au vote, je suis un peu agnostique, mais je ne crois pas que ce soit nécessaire.
How damaging is this division that's going on in the party?
I think it'll be good to put it to rest and unite, and we're all united in defeating the Conservatives in the next election. I think that's what should rally.
Is that even possible if you still have more than 20 that continue to say that they want the Prime Minister to have a secret ballot here? Can you actually put this to rest?
I'm a hopeful type of person, so I think after this caucus we'll be able to put it to rest. That's my hope, certainly. Yeah, I think it's a distraction.
Pourquoi pensez que c'est pas nécessaire d'avoir un vote secret?
Ben, parce que je vous l'ai dit, moi, mon éthique m'intime que c'est à M. Trudeau de prendre sa décision. Il a pris sa décision. Maintenant, on a un bon bilan, puis par rapport, je ne crois pas qu'il soit nécessaire d'avoir un vote secret, parce que, comme je vous dis, pour moi, la décision revient à M. Trudeau.
Mais pour la suite des choses, on ne dit pas que ça faciliterait les choses, qu'un vote secret, on tourne la page.
C'est pas le vote secret, vous tournez la page comment?
Ben, c'est ce dont on va discuter, mais je pense que justement de regarder quelles seront les politiques qu'on va offrir aux Canadiens en vue de la prochaine élection, c'est quoi notre plan. Je pense que ça va servir à tourner la page.
Est-ce que vous avez
Merci beaucoup. Je dois y aller. Ben, certainement. Oui, merci.
Minister Fraser, is Canada reducing its housing goals now that it's reduced its immigration numbers?
No, we haven't planned to shift the housing goals. We need to build as quickly as we can, and we need to do everything that we can to get there, whether that's measures to reduce the cost of building, what we got to do to make it easier to rent or buy, and make sure we're building the right kind of homes. Make sure we have space for families, not just one-unit buildings, but also making sure that we have housing stock for vulnerable Canadians who are looking for affordable housing options. So we're going full bore with everything we got.
So
now that you're Minister of Housing, back then when you were the one that announced the immigration targets, you know, oui, exact. Now, in hindsight, would you have done things differently?
Certainly, your question was in English. My apologies. It's
up to you.
Yeah, so there's, in all things, I always look to figure out what I could do differently. I think particularly when it comes to the temporary programs, let's use a practical example here. The International Student Program, I had concerns before the time that I was moved to the housing portfolio, and I was speaking publicly about them at the time. The strategy that we adopted was to try to negotiate changes with provincial governments. Those negotiations, I let play out too long. They failed. We couldn't get any movement from the provinces to better police yes, that's right, on the temporary side. And what we saw was a move towards the policy with the cap that Minister Miller announced that we had in train, and that was actually the first conversation I had with Minister Miller. So there's things I would do differently, things I would do sooner.
But I'm talking about the targets.
Yeah, the
targets. 500,000. And well,
was it too ambitious?
So I actually think because we were seeing pressures, some through the student program, some that were unexpected as a result of the Ukrainian effort or the Afghan effort that we've seen, there were pressures that were abnormal. And I think having all of them happen at the same time, we increase the permanent residency numbers. But you do realize you have within the permanent residency programs options to provide permanent residency to more people who are already here, which is another way to do it. So on the details, on the nuance, there are some changes that I would make with the benefit of hindsight. But at the same time, putting myself in the circumstances I was at the time, making sure we were trying to address a record-breaking labor shortage and wanting to do the right thing when it came to supporting vulnerable people fleeing war. With those factors in place...
the change that was announced last week...
How did you
feel about that? Because it's a very, very big change.
It is, but I think I recognize that when Canadians are living in their community, they feel the sum total of the permanent and temporary programs together. There's no denying the fact that there are some communities, I look at one university town has received 35,000 study permits. When you see a general increase to address the labour shortage permanent residency program, it's layered on top of some of those challenges that the programs were experiencing otherwise. So we're trying to communicate to Canadians that we want to make sure the system's under control. My experience when I'm talking to people is they say, we still support immigration. We know it's essential for our demographics. We know it's essential for our economy. But we want to make sure that our communities have the capacity to absorb. I'm not seeing much in the way of xenophobia that exists in communities. I think people have real concerns around the cost of housing. People have real concerns about the pressure that certain communities are facing. But if we rein in some of the, frankly, abuses we've seen on the temporary programs, at the same time we demonstrate to Canadians that the system's under control, my sense is Canada will maintain immigration as a competitive advantage for many, many years.
The Conservative MPs who approached you about the housing accelerator?
Which ones?
Yeah.
We've got a list of at least a dozen who've reached out in writing by letter or by email to my office. I look off the top of my head. I don't want to get it wrong for you, but we can, if you want to follow up, I've got no objection to sharing. I think it's probably a matter of public record.
What do you think about them doing that?
Well, look, I actually encourage MPs from all different parties to write our office to seek funding for their community. I expect you want this guy. Okay, merci.
À M. Robert sur la francisation des immigrants au Québec. Pourquoi est-ce que vous avez ressenti le besoin d'écrire?
Deux choses. La première, c'est qu'on sait qu'au Québec, immigration et francisation, ça va ensemble pour que les immigrants, les nouveaux arrivants qui viennent pour enrichir notre société puissent rapidement le faire. Ça prend des cours de francisation. Et ce qu'on entend, c'est qu'il y a des cours de francisation qui sont annulés. C'est un problème, évidemment, pour les nouveaux arrivants. C'est un problème pour le Québec, y compris le gouvernement du Québec, qui, quand les gens ne s'intégrent pas assez rapidement, bien, ça cause des coûts aussi pour le gouvernement du Québec. Donc, on a rappelé qu'un montant important annuel était envoyé au gouvernement du Québec. C'est le gouvernement du Québec qui a la responsabilité d'utiliser ces ressources pour faire en sorte que le maximum d'investissement possible puisse être fait en francisation.
Mais est-ce que vous accepteriez de bonifier, en tant que gouvernement fédéral, l'argent, les transferts que vous envoyez à Québec, justement pour favoriser la francisation?
Mais avant de bonifier, il faudrait tout d'abord savoir à quoi servent ces 750 millions et plus annuels qui sont envoyés au gouvernement du Québec pour, entre autres, l'intégration et la francisation des nouveaux arrivants.
Donc, avez-vous, moi je comprends que vous craignez que votre l'argent fédéral soit pas utilisé, c'est pourquoi il est destiné.
Mais ce qu'on voit, c'est qu'il y a une différence entre ces 750 millions qui est envoyé et le chiffre officiel qui est autour de 450 millions du budget total du ministère de l'Immigration et de la Francisation du gouvernement du Québec. Ça soulève des questions légitimes, évidemment, et on aimerait pouvoir avoir une conversation basée sur ces chiffres.
Donc, suggérez-vous que la francisation, du point de vue du gouvernement du Québec, c'est pas une priorité présentement et qu'on utilise l'argent à d'autres choses?
Non, au contraire, on sait que c'est une priorité pour le gouvernement du Québec de faire la francisation, l'appui nécessaire à l'immigration. Mais ce qu'on constate, c'est que l'aide du gouvernement canadien, qui est absolument essentielle, ne semble pas être utilisée suffisamment pour l'intégration et la francisation des nouveaux arrivants. Merci.
Are you confident that Canada is going to be able to, we'll just go for the full camera is right here, it's going to be able to bridge the gap between what the PBO says right now, which is that Canada needs to double its defense spending in order to meet NATO commitments?
Listen, I'm not really confident. We're absolutely committed to doing that. We've made very clear to our NATO allies that Canada commits to achieving the 2% that NATO has prescribed, and I'm always grateful for the work of the PBO, and you know it's useful information, and certainly we'll read his report very carefully. And at the same time, I would also point out that the 2% is a NATO spending metric. They utilize NATO's calculation of each of the NATO members' anticipated GDP, and that's the bar where they have set it for us. The PBO, in his calculation, frankly demonstrates far more optimism about the growth of the Canadian economy. I share that optimism, and at the same time, I think it's important that we are working towards the NATO target of 2%. I believe we have to make a significant additional investment in Canada's national defence. For me, it's not just about how much money we have to spend, it's about the capabilities that we have to create for the Canadian Armed Forces. That means we've got to significantly increase the number of people that are members of the Canadian Armed Forces. We've got some big investments to make in certain platforms, in ships and planes. There's infrastructure that we have to build to support the members of the Canadian Armed Forces. We've got a lot of investment to make. My job is to make sure that we make those investments in a way which is credible and to Canadians, and they understand the connection between the very large spends that we have to make and the outcomes that we create. The work of the PBO helps inform that work. So does the work that we're doing with NATO.
Is Canada in this?
No, they're different numbers. With great respect, and perhaps you just came into that and missed what I explained before. The spending metric that we've agreed to with NATO is based on the NATO calculation of every member's GDP. That's the standard that they have set, and that's the standard we've committed to and are working towards. The PBO, in his calculation, uses different calculations on what he anticipates Canada's GDP will be by 2032. I appreciate and frankly respect his optimism for our economy, but we are working towards our commitment to the NATO target of 2%. But I also want to acknowledge, as we've explained to Canadians, we have to make a very significant investment in the Canadian Armed Forces, in our people, in our platforms, in the infrastructure that supports our capability to defend our country, our continent, to live up to our international obligations. That's what we're absolutely committed to do. I'm very confident that we will be able to meet the NATO spending metric that they have presented to us. But I also acknowledge we've got a lot of work to do.
If our target
how long did BAC know that it was fraudulently asking veterans to pay too much for long-term care?
I understand that the calculation has just come down, and that's a question better put to the Minister at Veterans Affairs. However, it is concerning. I think we've clearly got some work to do in order to respond to those findings.
If the PBO is saying that 2% target is going to be $81 billion by 2032, is that something that Canada can actually spend?
Well, I think in the PBO report, he also talks about the achievability of that spending metric. We deal with inflation. We deal with a growth in our GDP. Frankly, a growth in our GDP actually that's the measure of an improvement in Canada's economy, improvement in our jobs, in our productivity performance. All of those things, I think, create real opportunities for us to invest in the things that are important to Canadians, and I think an investment in our national defense is important to all Canadians.
A U.S. official recently said that NATO has a Canada problem. Is this going to continue to be a problem for NATO and for Canada if we don't reach these numbers?
No, actually, that statement was made by an American politician, not by NATO. I've been working.
No, I said a U.S.
I've been working really. You said a NATO official.
Oh, sorry.
I've been working very carefully with the previous Secretary General and the new Secretary General. I just had a meeting last week with the Supreme Allied Commander Europe. We talked about the capability requirements that he needs Canada to meet in Europe. We're working really hard to do that work. It requires investment and it requires resolve. We're making both.
Thank you so much.
Oui, il y a une unité dans le Parti libéral. Nous sommes ciblés, assurés que Pierre Poilievre jamais devient Premier ministre, qu'il ne peut pas faire les choses pour couper les programmes et les services qui sont importants pour les Canadiens. Et on va continuer de se tenir debout pour les Canadiens et assurer que les conservateurs ne peuvent pas implémenter leur agenda caché.
Do you think the leadership questions have been put to rest after this caucus meeting, or are there still divisions within caucus?
Look, I don't talk about caucus. That's what happens in caucus stays in caucus. But what I can say is that our caucus is extremely united. We have one goal, and that is to ensure that Pierre Poilievre does not become Prime Minister and that he's not able to implement the very dangerous cuts that he is looking to implement that are going to hurt Canadians, because he's going to take away the services and the programs that they care about, and that he's unable to implement what is his hidden agenda that is starting to come to light. I mean, Canadians should rightfully be asking themselves, why is it that he's still refusing to get a security clearance? And there's only one answer. It's because he has something to hide, and he's hiding that from Canadians.
Can I ask you can you win in Burlington?
J'ai jamais parlé sur le sujet qui...
United focus and we're going to win.
Si j'ai pas répondu sur cette question. I don't talk about what happens in caucus, so you can find somebody else.
One of your colleagues said nobody asked for a secret ballot. And
I'm not talking about what happened in caucus.
How do you feel coming out of this?
Is there going to be a secret ballot?
I haven't hired anybody in any number sufficient to have any kind of conversation of that nature. No.
How do you feel coming out of this caucus meeting?
I feel totally resolved for the battle ahead and for the work ahead. I personally have an enormous amount of work to do on making sure that Canadians are connected to dental care, that we sign agreements on pharmacare, that we continue the incredible changes that we're making to our healthcare system. That's what I'm focused on. That's what I continue to be focused on.
Do you feel any divisions that are in caucus have been ironed out right now?
I understand there's a big tempest about all this, but I've been around in caucus since 2004. This caucus is more united than any caucus I've ever been in. The difference is, no, the thing that we're all focused on is on defeating Poilievre and the threat that he represents. There's total unanimity in that. And I can tell you that I was in caucuses 04, 06, 08, 11. All during that period, I'd never seen the kind of unity of purpose in this. Is there a discussion about how we best do that? Of course. That's always taking place. You know, we unfortunately don't seem to have the ability to keep our caucus discussions internal. I can assure you that every party has its differences. Every party is talking about them. We just happen to talk about them openly. But the total focus of those is how we win and how we stop Poilievre.
Why would that be a surprise, that you're focused on beating your adversary?
Well, unfortunately, it was a surprise. I mean, in 04, 06, 08, and 11, there was so much infighting and so much ego that a lot of times it wasn't about that. So I can tell you that was not my experience in those years. In those years, I watched people's egos and ambitions take precedence over the priorities of the country and our common values. So I wish that was, I can tell you, that was the hardest part of living through those days, was listening to people putting their egos and their ambitions ahead of the country and of shared interests.
Behind the adversary.
No, I had people who were literally cheering for us to fall apart so that somebody else's ambition could manifest. Like, it was an incredibly dysfunctional period of time. So, you know, people come and talk to me about this dysfunction. Like, I mean, look, every organization that I've ever been in has some degree of dysfunction, and every organization that I've ever been in has disagreements. They have differences in opinion of how things work. But it's when that becomes something that is subservient. You know, when that whole debate ends up becoming something that is about people's egos and positions and this kind of, that's what was so difficult about that. This conversation isn't difficult. This conversation is how do we defend our values? How do we stop Mr. Poilievre, and what's the best way to do? That's a positive conversation.
The timing must be unfortunate, heading right into an election.
That is the conversations people are having. I don't think truth is always inconvenient, but it's always the truth. So the fact that these conversations are taking place is reflective of reality. So the fact that, you know, we're not hiding that or putting it under some kind of box, you're having an open conversation about it, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's a good thing. I think that, you know, hiding from the truth and trying to pretend that things that aren't true are true, that seems to be Mr. Poilievre's job, not ours.
Thank you very much.
Is this over now, or what do you think? The leadership drama, the leadership speculation, the pressure, has it been put to bed?
Well, I think we have absolute trust and faith in the Prime Minister, and people expressed concerns last week. I believe this matter is over. We have to serve Canadians, and there's a lot of very important things that we need to do.
Well, the question of a secret ballot, has that been put to bed as well? C'était
Non.
Il y a bien eu un vote secret.
Non, il n'y a pas eu de vote secret.
Ah, Madame Lebouthillier.
Il n'y en aura pas.
Et on n'aura pas. Mais comment vous vous sentez maintenant?
Ce qui se passe au caucus reste au caucus.
Mais vous pouvez nous dire comment vous vous sentez maintenant?
What's that? Do you like the election plan today?
I don't want to comment anything about what happens in
Do you feel better
caucus.
about things? Like, wow, we're going to win with this plan.
I'm always happy. I'm always enthusiastic. You know me.
Okay. Fine after this caucus meeting? I mean, there are obvious divisions within caucus.
No, I think we're unified. I think we're unified. Just a comment in general, you know, I think Bertrand Russell, the British philosopher, once said, there's nothing worse than a personality turned within. I might suggest the same thing politically. There's nothing worse than a party who's with a personality turned within. So I think we want to get on with life, get on with governing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Monsieur Lauzon, est-ce que vous avez l'impression que les gens, ceux qu'on a appelés les mutins, ont été rassurés aujourd'hui par la présentation qui a été faite là, pour le plan de la campagne nationale?
Ben, ce qui se passe au caucus, je peux vous assurer qu'on est une belle famille. Ça a super bien été. Comme d'habitude, on a eu le caucus du Québec. J'ai présidé le caucus du Québec ce matin. Sorti de là avec des bonnes idées qu'on a apportées au caucus national. Mais malheureusement, ce qui se passe au caucus reste au caucus.
Mais est-ce que vous avez l'impression que vous êtes prêts?
Un bon signal, d'après vous. Le fait qu'il n'y ait pas de vote secret, qu'il n'y ait personne qui l'ait demandé, est-ce que c'est un bon signal d'unité, d'après vous?
Le bon signal d'unité, c'est que qu'est-ce qui se passe au caucus doit rester au caucus. Et aujourd'hui, c'est exactement ça qui est arrivé. On est sorti encore plus fort comme une belle famille.
Parce qu'il n'y a pas eu de vote.
On est arrivé au caucus du Québec avec des idées qu'on a partagées avec le caucus national. Puis je peux vous dire qu'on en sort toujours plus fort. Mais ce qui se passe au caucus reste au caucus.
Il y a déjà plein de choses qui nous disent ce qui s'est passé.
Je ne partagerai pas ce qui s'est passé au caucus aujourd'hui.
Mais êtes-vous content de Nathalie la réunion?
Ça a très bien été.
Mais est-ce qu'il y a une présentation qui vous
Vous
permettait d'être
n'allez pas savoir ce qui s'est passé au caucus. Vous le demandez, il y a des gens qui l'ont partagé dans le passé. C'est fini.
OK, mais dans ce cas-là, vous appuyez M. Trudeau. Pourquoi vous appuyez toujours M. Trudeau? Il y en a qui l'appuient. Pourquoi vous?
Au caucus des femmes, j'ai
Mais
une
pourquoi
présentation
vous
à faire
l'appuyez?
pour
Je
la
vais avoir votre
plateforme.
opinion à vous.
On se parlera plus tard. Je peux te le dire, j'ai plein de choses à dire. Mais là, présentement, je me concentre sur la plateforme puis je dois aller présenter au caucus des femmes.
Oui, ben.
I don't think it's a sign one way or the other, really. Yeah.
But the fact that nobody even asked for it.
Well, some people were asking for it.
Some people went to the mic and asked for it?
No, but you guys, I can read the media too.
No, but today nobody asked for it, right?
Well,
It wasn't dealt with today.
Yeah.
we didn't have a secret ballot vote. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Do you have any discussion?
No, we were honestly, the focus of this conversation today was very much focused on what are the next steps from a party perspective. We had a presentation from Andrew Bevan, as we would have had last week, but it was very much focused on these are the next steps from a party perspective, and people were able to, weigh in with their own feedback as far as it goes. But I don't think anything. That question of from last week to what's the finality, what's the secret, that wasn't part of it. Today was about what's next steps.
What did you make of Bevan's plan? If you were running again, would you still hold Toronto beaches with Bevan's plan? Can you just, in general terms, what did you make of it? Impressive?
I like to think with or without, But no, it's good. It's definitely the right step forward. It's just a matter of now it's about implementation, putting some, we have to be competitive.
So there was no talk about leadership today at all?
That was not the focus of the conversation.
Can you finish your thought on Bevan's plan?
Just when you look at I mentioned this last week, but when you look at the outsized spending on advertising as between the Conservative Party and the Liberal Party, we have to close that gap. And obviously, we're not, the fundraising numbers are quite strong from the Liberal Party, which was well received, I think, today. But we obviously have to put that money in play in an effective way. And I think Bevan started to articulate a plan that made sense on that front.
Are you disappointed?
Will we be seeing Liberal ads soon, Mr. President?
I think so, yeah.
What about the dissenters? Is that the end of that?
I don't know if it's the end of that, but you'll have to ask the dissenters.
Were you asked about the money?
Do you think the leadership issues are behind the party? Can you guys move forward now?
I think there is going to be if I was. There's going to be by-elections in the future where I imagine, depending upon how those go, things will be revisited. But, right now, I think the overwhelming focus is what comes next, how do we make sure we're putting our best foot forward on the campaign front. Obviously, Parliament's a little bit broken right now, and that's a challenge too. But how do we make sure we are articulating what comes next for folks and make this is a choice.
Are you disappointed that...
So they're not being
What's that?
The trouble of leadership, they're not being
You have to ask others. From my perspective, over the next month and a half, from now to the end of the year, I am squarely focused on taking the fight to Pierre Poilievre.
Are you disappointed that there was not more, there wasn't actually really advertising coming from the Liberals since Pierre Poilievre has become, leader? There wasn't a big campaign, since he's...
Yeah, I think I'm on record having expressed my fair share of frustrations on that front, yeah.
Pierre Poilievre looks at this, I'm not asking you to speak for Pierre Poilievre, but do you think that he wants to run against the Prime Minister, given the gap in the polls right now?
I don't know, but I think if you stack up the Liberal record over 9 years, you look at, I just spoke to a woman in Toronto who saves $12,000 a year on childcare. You look at the impact of the Canada Child Benefit in reducing child poverty in Crescent Town in my community. It's 10,000 people that live in 6 buildings, and they're not upper income individuals. You look at the impact of dental care. You look at the impact, the real life impact that people have, and look, interest rates have been a real struggle. And high mortgage costs have been a massive struggle for many people and a lot of middle class people. And so you look at interest rates coming down, it's not solved their problems, it's lightening the load a little bit. That needs to continue, and I think we're going to be in a much better place by the time an election comes to say, this is what we've done, this is what we're going to do next, and this is the choice that you face. And what's the choice on there? And they're promising big tax cuts to everyone, and how are they going to pay for it? They're going to pay for it with cuts, and they're going to pay for it with cuts to important programs that a lot of people rely on. That's just the fact.
Are you unimpressed by this rebellious movement within your party? Do you think they lack kind of courage and conviction? And
Look, everything I said last week applies. I think we got to focus on taking the fight to Pierre Poilievre. Yeah.
When you talk about the advertising campaign and sort of bridging the gap between advertising dollars, what about the message? What is the message that you think Canadians need to hear in some of these ad spots that we will hopefully see coming soon from the Liberals?
I think the message has to be about some of the things we've done, but what's at risk, right? This is about a choice. I've said in other places, but when I'm up in Sioux Lookout and I speak to a longtime Liberal who goes, I don't love your boss, but I'm still going to vote for him because, too many apologies, too much spending, but I don't know what I'm getting with the other guy. And I think that, what are we getting with Pierre Poilievre? And he's not really clear on what he's going to cut. He has been clear, $1 of new spending equals $1 of cuts. Well, he's already promised billions and billions and billions in new spending, and the campaign hasn't even started yet. So where are the cuts? And I think absolutely we have to put a choice to Canadians and say, these are the things we've done, this is what we're going to do, we've sustainably managed our finances and delivered a lot of good for a lot of people, and here's what's at risk if we have a conservative direction.
Justin Bevin is going to back up what you want to see.
It's the beginnings of it. It's the beginnings of it.
So
But
will
yeah, I think
Justin
so.
Trudeau figure prominently in the ads, or will it be about the things you've done?
I think probably a combination. Look, there's no one ad, right?
I know.
I think in terms of the campaign,
As a party, what is best?
I think you want to have a range of different ads, and you want to have a range of different ads on different platforms, and whatever performs the best, you gotta throw your money into that effort.
Should be a face-off. Justin Trudeau be on the posters everywhere.
I don't think people are voting on posters.
No, but usually it is. Usually it is.
Everyone knows. You think people don't know who Justin Trudeau is? I think the message. Does everyone know that we've delivered dental care? Does everyone know that Canada Child Benefit is something we've delivered? It's lifted 400,000 kids out of poverty. Okay, we did it. We did it. No. But the number of people who know that, despite the fact that we did it in the tail end of 2015, is very low.
You stick them on the poster. That's how it works.
Or you put a dentist.
Were you suggesting earlier that
It's 9 years of government. I think we were elected in 2015. No questions asked. We were elected because of the hope and the promise of Justin Trudeau. I think in 2020, it was the same in 2021. It's going to be the same in the next election. This isn't just about the leader. This is about different teams and the choices as between those teams. Do you want Leslyn Lewis, who believes that the WHO is going to take over our sovereignty? Do you want Cheryl Gallant, who is literally talking about me forcing people to eat bugs in the House of Commons? It is absurd, conspiracy-addled nonsense. Do you want that? Or do you want serious people who have delivered and are going to continue to deliver despite the imperfections in governing? I think that's ultimately the choice that we got to put to Canadians.
Were you suggesting earlier that there are future by-elections that will renew questions about the Liberal leadership?
Sorry, say that again?
Were you suggesting earlier that there are impending by-elections that are going to renew questions about Liberal leadership?
I think in the same way, after Toronto St. Paul's, if we don't perform as well as we need to and to expectations, I think those questions will always arise. But, so the goal has to be, and Bevan presented the beginnings of I think, a pretty serious plan, and we've got to put our best foot forward. And people will judge us. Have we put our best foot forward? And if not, yeah, I think we're going to have to revisit some of those conversations. But right now, the focus is how do we put our best foot forward, and how do we set about winning? And how do we about re-earning the trust that we've lost in some cases, and making sure we're articulating progress that some people don't necessarily know about. So yeah, anyway. And by the way, I did catch my flight last week.
This issue been put to bed for your caucus?
I'm focused on defeating Pierre Poilievre.
But how are you going to do that when you got 24 of them who say the Prime Minister's not the guy?
By focusing on Pierre Poilievre and where he is at, and I love the contrast between Pierre Poilievre and Justin Trudeau. That's what I'm.
So what's your message to the colleagues who want Trudeau gone?
Focus on Pierre Poilievre.
Canada Post, possible strike at Canada Post. Can you tell me what the government is doing in the event or to prevent a strike at Canada Post?
Well, as the Labour Minister, we're obviously active in trying to facilitate a collective agreement, and we want the two parties to agree and for that agreement to be ratified.
Is there anything more that the government can be doing, or is there any further action the government can be doing to try to not have a strike at Canada Post?
Well, we're applying all of the resources of the Labour Department. We work between the parties. The Canada Post can speak for itself. As the Labour Minister, we're working to try and facilitate an agreement.
How do you feel coming out of this caucus?
Sur les postes, vous en êtes où là-dedans? Est-ce que vous avez confiance que ça se règle comme prévu?
Les partis sont à la table. Post Canada, je crois comprendre, vient de déposer une deuxième offre globale. Les deux partis sont en train de négocier avec l'appui, avec l'aide des ressources de mon ministère. Évidemment, nous serons là pour les soutenir pendant tous les pourparlers.
How are you feeling coming out of this caucus meeting? We understand there was no secret ballot vote today.
I feel great coming out of every caucus meeting. We are here with the privilege of serving Canadians. And every time we're in caucus talking about solutions for Canadians, I come out of here.
Do you think you've dealt with those divisions, though, within caucus?
I do.
How?
How did you do that?
What did Andrew Bevan talk about in there?
I don't talk about caucus.
Campaign presentation.
I've given many of those, David.
Just put it in context, all the presentations.
I think everyone has total confidence in our campaign director.
Why do you think this is done? Why do you think, or do you think that this is taken care of now, that this division is done?
This is a very resolute group of people. We have an opponent that we disagree stridently with. I think everyone agrees we do have to do a better job presenting the contrast to Canadians and offering them a clearer, more sharper choice. That's what we're going to do.
Thank you. When we have the official party position is that they oppose this kind of a fund, but the Conservative members are very happy to write letters saying, pick my community because I believe it will build more homes. So when you see that kind of division in what they say publicly and what they say privately, I think it speaks volumes about the fact that they're posturing politically when they say they want to cut this fund, when I know that their caucus members believe it will make a difference because they're asking for money from it.
When you were mentioning about a dozen or so MPs sent in letters, my colleague, she was reporting on 5 specific names. So are there more letters floating around?
Yeah, look, some are letters, some would be emails. There'd be a mix. I don't have the exact breakdown right now, but we've got about a dozen or so colleagues to date have communicated to our team saying that they would like their communities to receive funding, which, by the way, is completely appropriate. I think members of Parliament from all parties should be advocating for funding for their communities, should be pushing their communities to do more. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Where this one goes sideways on the Conservatives is when that kind of a campaign is going on within their caucus, to then adopt a position that publicly that they don't support the fund, that they don't want it to exist, is nonsensical. So there, again, nothing wrong with members of Parliament from all parties. It's the way it should be, advocating that the government support their communities, but then to go out and publicly say that the program doesn't have utility and it should be cut is just crazy. Okay, merci.
One party, which is of course a Conservative, that most parliamentarians understand the importance of having journalism, of having a strong public broadcaster, and that this is something that we should work constructively together. Thank you.